you.
Perfect, perfect. So listen, thank you everyone for joining today and really appreciate the time. I believe we have about 20 minutes or so, and then we're going to be opening up the last 5 to 6 minutes for Q&A. So yeah, as the bio, as we talked about when Bradley read the bio, yeah, I spent a lot of time, and hopefully nobody has their calculators out trying to figure out how old I am through the through the different amount of times I've been at American Express and now with Comdata. When I was at American Express, I spent a lot of time working with companies on trying to develop programs, looking at, really, let's say, need-based solutions. And, for the first, I'd say multiple years there, I wasn't even familiar with the virtual cards. And, 18 months ago, Comdata came and they said, Emil, we'd love for you to come over and look at building out a travel vertical for us, right? Because, really any bank or most companies, they can have a virtual card program, but as you know, you either manage travel, you deal with travel within some facet of your company. Travel is just so unique compared to really almost any other industry, right? Because it's not just a form of payment that you're looking at, but it's an actual interaction that your traveler is having when they're making the booking and when they're going to the hotel, the air, whatever it's going to be. So in looking at building out a travel vertical, there were really three things that we took a focus on. And this is not a Comdata pitch. This is really more about education on the virtual payments and how it works within the travel space. So the first thing when we look at virtual payments for travel, it's developing the right process, right? It's that the corporation is not spending time trying to issue cards and sending cards over to hotels or airlines. It's about what's going to be the right process, and that took a lot of time developing, the processes to make sure that companies and travel management companies, they can really grasp it and work with it. The second is creativity, right? When you look at virtual cards, it's, again, not just using an off-the-shelf virtual card to make bookings with, right? It's about how can you actually utilize it to enhance your program, right? Not just putting a payment out there and saying, okay, I've taken care of it, but how can you provide value to your customers, and how can you utilize a virtual payment to provide value to your customers? And then the third one, and this is what we're going to spend the time on today, is around the education, right? Because, if we were polling people and said, what are virtual cards used for, the common thought in the marketplace is, oh, you know what, it's great with hotels, or we use them for hotels, but there's a lot of other areas and a lot of other opportunities within virtual payments that we're going to talk about today. And then hopefully we can have some questions at the end. So, that being said, I'm going to really start with the first slide on the education. And many people may be familiar with virtual cards today. Some, this could be really a new concept, but really the best way to look at a virtual card, or what would be considered a single-use virtual account, is a one-time credit card number, and it's issued by a virtual card provider, and there's no actual plastic associated with the account. So unlike let's call it like a ghost card or a central bill where there's no actual plastic with it, the one-time card number is different because it's a different number for every transaction. And that number, that card number, so it's for Comdata, it's driven on a MasterCard platform. So it's a single-use MasterCard number, and it's a range of dates that the card is active for. A single-use account card is a set dollar amount payable to a specific either vendor or industry type. So it could be, payable to, a Hilton, a Marriott, an American Airlines, so on and so forth. Right. Once that transaction is completed, the account number is inactive. So great way, and we'll get into, benefits of how that reduces fraud, but it's just a really good way to be able to eliminate fraud because, again, it's, in today you read some of the press releases and you're hearing about some hotels and some of the challenges they have with, um, fraud and, access into their systems, right? The virtual card, they can't do anything with that. So again, it's just a really great way to prevent fraud. Additionally, one other way, just when you try to make the comparison of a virtual card, it is similar to a check, right? Think about how when you write a check payable to something, right, and it's for the dollar amount, and same thing with the virtual card, with the only difference being that the check has an account number on it and it has a routing number on it, which could relate, could actually transpire into fraud, where with the virtual account, it prevents that. So here's really my favorite slide, and we look at the slide, it's really doing two different things. On the left-hand side, I would call it really the value proposition around virtual payments, and then on the right-hand side, we're looking at really just some of the use cases and what we're seeing today in the marketplace on where a virtual card will be, impactful for a corporation. So, starting on the left, it's, and I'm not going to read them each one by one, but just kind of get into a high level of it. From a data perspective, everybody today needs more. Everybody today needs more data, if we like it or not. It's understanding the virtual card spend, incorporating it into your, your regular corporate card spend with the virtual card spend to really get a bigger picture view of your company's, your travel spend. We did touch on controls, really eliminating fraud and driving policy compliance to programs. And I'm going to get into the policy compliance to program when we get to the really the use cases on the right. A big one, and this is one that, it could be almost really like a value prop in itself, is really around just the revenue, right? So we think about the revenue a virtual card could generate. Today there's spend that possibly is going outside of the program. It's being put on individual cards. Corporations are not capturing these revenues many times when they're going out and they're doing their negotiations with hotels, airlines, different partners, right? So being able to put the spend on the virtual card and then incorporating it back into your overall spend is a great way, because, who knows, maybe the additional spend that you've put on the card allows you to then go out there and negotiate stronger discounts because, again, you have more leverage because you have, that greater spend capture. Process. So this is one of my favorite ones. So process. When I started, at Comdata, I thought, wow, this is really easy. Oh, it's a single-use virtual card. Who doesn't need it? And I was very naive right when I came on board, thinking that, okay, there'll be a desktop solution, and corporations can go out there and access numbers, but nobody has the time to be toggling back and forth between systems to make online bookings. So I spent about 9 months working on different integration with the virtual card, where it doesn't matter if you're making a reservation online, doesn't matter if you're making the reservation through GetThere, through Concur, whatever the online booking tool you're using is. The process we set up is that you're able to utilize a virtual payment for that, because there's nothing more frustrating when you're looking at a product and you find out that it only works over the phone, right? And then you look at your mix of business and you see that, wow, 75% of our business is online today, but this product only works over the phone, right? So we've worked with Travelon to develop an online and an offline process for that. And then the last one, I always bring this up, and I'm not even sure I've ever seen this within a virtual card use case outside of just me, talking about it all the time, is duty of care. And, what spurred the whole duty of care is around, you think of the crisis management today, and I would say most companies today, if not all companies today, have a, business continuity crisis management plan in times of crisis, for the London bombings or hurricanes, tornadoes, bad weather, and you have to move people from one location to another. And, the question I always ask is, through your security group, if you're using iJet or, one of those companies, do you have a plan do you have a payment strategy around that? Like, how are you going to move all of the people if, they don't have credit cards, they don't have corporate cards? Are you taking the boss's card and using his or her card to move people? So having a virtual card program for duty of care also, I believe, makes a lot of sense, because even if you never use it, you know that you've actually fully closed the loop on crisis management and being able to pay for the things you have to do. The right-hand side, I look at this really more as some of the creativity and not just saying, okay, we have hotel usage and let's use this for faxing hotels, right? So first is, and I'd say just think about, the programs that you run today and say, like, for your contractors, recruits, and consultants, one, are they going through the travel program, or are they just doing their own thing and billing back, billing you back and then marking it up, right? So being able to offer a payment type that, again, is not going to carry any areas of excess and overages, right? You can actually, with a virtual card, you can use it for these groups. Just saying, and I'll just use the hotel as an example and make it for room and tax only, right? And not pay for the extravagant meal they're going to throw at the on your dime, throw at the hotel. Central bills and deposits. So today, many people use ghost, what we call ghost card accounts or central bill accounts, where it's one number. And what happens is, think about it from a reconciliation perspective. You have one number, 75 people, and you're trying to reconcile, that bill every month. Well, with the virtual card, it's a one-to-one transaction, right? So card number, MasterCard number, transaction traveler, right? And it's a lot easier to reconcile. And, even electronically, if you think about, you can then go ahead and take that information and pass it back over to the right, bill it back internally to the right business units. Non-profile travelers, I worked with a lot of companies who, would not issue corporate cards if a traveler traveled less than 3 times a year, right? So, well, what do you do? Because you don't want to have the card out there because they're not traveling that much, but you do want to be able to capture the spend. So really option one is, okay, you can put their air on a central bill and you let them use their personal card for the hotel. We also now offer that virtual card platform for the non-profile traveler. And again, it stays within the program and you're able to capture all of that data. Crew rotations, we're starting to make a lot more traction with crew rotations. So, you're moving, and when I say crew rotations, I'm not talking about the the Carnival cruise. It's so big oil and gas and marine and offshore, and looking at a lot of these may be 1099 employees or and contractors from above. So great way when you're doing either the manifest bookings and you need to have a form of payment, to just being able to pay for their air, pay for their hotel, keep it in the travel program, make it a much easier process, right? So being able to offer virtual payment there is pretty helpful. And then I talked about the BCP crisis management with duty of care. The last one I want to just bring up here is meetings and events. So we see this being pretty big, meaning that today you may be doing some small meetings internally, 10, 15 people going, booking hotel space. And what we find is that companies writing checks still for deposits is very, still very prevalent. So, in a case like this, and I'm going to show you on the next slide what it looks like, but, part of the virtual payment program is also having, being able to do it through the agency, right, for the full, for the full automation and the processes, but also having a desktop version. So when you need to go ahead and remove that check for meeting deposits, food and beverage, rooms, you also are able to issue virtual payments to the hotels within the same, all within the same program and all within the same reporting. So so that's it. So right, value prop, I would say creativity around the use cases of it. The next two slides, and this is really a lot more tactical, but the next two slides, I've actually just added these recently to the this virtual card review, because I get asked, well, can you show us a demo, right? Can you demo for us what it looks like? And because it's all automated, right? It's a lot of times outside of just actually making the booking and having it work, there's nothing really to demo when someone asks to see a virtual card demo. So what I've done is I've actually taken two screenshots. The first is around the program setup, and this is the data field. So before we talked about the reporting and the reconciliation, here is the information. And tell you, when I was working with companies on trying to define and develop programs for them, one of the biggest challenges I had doing this was that I would be asking the company to conform to the parameters that we could deliver against, right? So it was a challenge because every company has a different unique need. So what we set up within Comdata for Virtual Card for Travel, if you look at the left-hand side, right, first name, last name, vendor invoice, vendor number, all of that stuff, those are reporting fields, okay? But we know that not everybody is going to need the same field. You may need it named differently. So the way we set it up, and this is, again, for the desktop version, as well as the, the automated through Travelon, the automation through Travelon, is we'll take a look at vendor, the third number down is vendor invoice number. Right? When you're making the booking, again, doesn't matter how you're doing it, you need you don't care about vendor invoice number, but you really need the confirmation number, right? So what we do is we, as you see, the box is checked by display, right? And then it's required, but it's required under the name confirmation number. So really, it's just a replacement, right? So you won't see vendor invoice number in your reporting or in your request. It's going to be named confirmation number. So this is how we let you really drive and create your own reporting. Vendor name, in travel, we don't call the Hilton a vendor name, it's the hotel name. So that's the way that we set the reporting up. And then the last piece of it, this is what we call our ICD, iConnect Data, Virtual Payment Portal Manager. I mean, it has a bunch of different names to it. So this is when the traveler is making their information, right? This information is being, when the traveler is making their booking, right? It's the same process they would always make. This would be auto-populated from when the booking is made. So someone logs into Concur, they make their booking. The required fields, we would, you match up the reporting you want from Comdata through the required fields that you're putting into your online booking tool or through the agency. Additionally, what's unique about this is that, let's say you're making that hotel, you're making that hotel deposit for the meeting. Through this site, and again, this is the same thing as doing it through the agency, you also have the ability to send a hotel authorization form. So you check send email. You could put the email in there, or it would be pre-populated, or send fax. So the beauty is that if you're at your desk today, or you have someone on your site, faxing front and back of credit cards to hotels. I mean, this is a way now that you also can automate that process by, having it go. So what would happen is you fill out this information. If you want to send a confirmation email to the traveler because you're scared the hotel may be losing the fax, you can, have the confirmation go to the traveler. You could have the fax go to the hotel, put in the information, and then once you hit submit, card pops up automatically. Again, and that's going to be it, but I want to talk about one last thing, and this is a question that does come up a lot, and I consider this really a best practice within virtual cards. So if it's Comdata or if it's any other virtual card program that, you're going with or using, the best practice that we have learned is around, if you look at where it says right after expiration date, it shows number of transactions and must be an exact amount, right? So if you're paying a hotel, right, and the hotel is going to be $200 tax, right? It comes back, it's $200 room and tax. You can make it an exact amount if you want. You don't have to, but for number of transactions, whenever you're doing a virtual card for travel and hotel, you never want to make it one transaction, right? Because what happens is there are so many restrictions that you can put on the card that if you make it one transaction for hotel, right, when the traveler checks in, the card gets authorized. That counts as a transaction. So what we find as a best practice is, making it 2 transactions or 3 transactions. It doesn't matter the number of transactions. You could make it 100 transactions, right? Because you're putting the controls around the dollar amount. But hotels love to authorize the card when you check in. And if you make it a virtual card only 1 transaction, authorization will count. The card will decline when they're checking out, right? So again, don't think about transactions as a driver. Think about the dollar amount and how you want to put controls around the spend, and that's what you manage to. So, Bradley, that's the virtual card overview. I don't know if you want to open it up for questions.
Yes, I will certainly open up for questions, and we've had some questions come through as you were talking, so I will get on to that right now. So the first question that had come through is, how do you identify who made the transaction?
How do you identify who made the transaction? So it would be, so what would happen is that it's really from how the virtual card is being requested, right? So if a virtual card is being requested from a desktop, we know that X amount of people within a company will have access to that, right? So there's a login to the desktop site. So, it's usually 1 or 2 people within the company, or then it would be, if it's done through the agency, I think that would be something in itself as well, I would guess, right, Bradley, where you guys are tracking, what agent made what booking. Is that what we're answering there?
I'm also thinking that when someone shows up at the hotel, X traveler, but then Y traveler ends up showing up, are there any security measures to make sure it's specific to a traveler? And then how is that being reported
Sure.
from a reconciliation standpoint?
Gotcha. So what happens is this. So through the program, and thank you for clarifying that. So what happens is the hotel will get a hotel authorization fax. It will be the front and the back of the card with the traveler name on the card. So it looks exactly like the, just you go into the photocopier and photocopying the front and back of a card. Then what happens is there's also the ability to send an email to that traveler as well to have the exact same information that the hotel would have, right? Which would be, the reservation is for Bradley, front, back of the card, you would also get a copy of that, and then you would just show your information when you check into the hotel, your ID, to validate, your name to what the hotel has from the hotel authorization, plus to what has been booked in the, what has been booked through the agency as well. So it's kind of like let's call it like a three-way match, right? The name is in the reservation. The hotel is receiving a copy of the payment, and then the traveler also has that in their, emailed to them front and back of the card as a hotel authorization form.
Wonderful. And then that would then translate to the reconciliation reporting, so that name would then appear at the end of each month on the billing cycle, so you would see the card number and the name and all the charges, etc.
Correct. Yes.
Wonderful. A few other questions. A traveler intermittently cancels their trip. Can the virtual card number be cancelled, or is it a case that it just gets changed for future travel?
Great question. So in a case like that, the virtual card is canceled, and it can all be done instantaneously online. So that the last slide that I showed you, which was our iConnect database, but the company has the ability to look at charges as real time, right? So as it's authorized, it can show it's authorized, and if they want, they can go out there and cancel it. They can do whatever they want, and then it just gets refunded back, to the credit limit. Yeah,
Perfect.
we don't recommend having cards sitting out there, right, that could have some value on it, even though they're not usable. We think, best thing to do is keep it clean. It's really simple just to go in there, you click a box saying cancel card becomes immediately inactive.
Okay. Another question here. If our card program has over 1,000 corporate cards, do each of the 1,000 cardholders process their own virtual card payments? What then is the role of the company's card administrator?
We're definitely not taking jobs away, but we're definitely not adding work to it either, right? So it would be, the only difference between having a virtual card program and having a piece of, let's say, a corporate card program, right, is that there's no actual plastic associated with the virtual card. So I would never, again, this is my opinion, right? I would never ever just cancel a card program or remove cards because you have a virtual card program. Virtual card programs, it's a supplement, I would say, right? Because the traveler still needs to, the traveler still needs to be able to do, Uber, taxis, dining. So there's always going to be a need to have plastic. What we're looking at is supplementing the plastic by, putting more controls in place around some of the different spend categories and some of the people who don't actually have access to cards, but you want to be able to control that spend to, keep budgets intact.
Okay. Couple more questions. In case a traveler has a change in their reservation and there is a change fee to pay, do you pay using the same virtual card?
No. So if they have, okay, so let's just think through the process, right? So, and this question does come up. I'm just trying to think of the best way to kind of frame it out. So traveler makes a booking, has a change, so what could happen? One or two things, right? So if they're making the change through the agency, an additional credit card, virtual card would be issued for that change. If they're doing the change at the airport, let's say, they would use their own personal card, right, or whatever card they had on file. So think of it as really being the same thing as if there was a piece of plastic, right? So if it's a piece of plastic and they're making the change with the agency, they're saying, you're going to validate that card number, or you're going to, say they have the option of a virtual card. If they're doing it at the gate, they would just follow the protocols that the airline uses, which is, you have to give a card number at the gate, because using a virtual card for travel for, let's say, airlines, and you're booking an airline ticket with American and it's $400, the traveler does not have the ability to go to the airport and say, hey, you know what, upgrade me to first class, and just put it on the form of payment, right? It doesn't, they're not able to do that, right? Because the card is for $400. So they have to use the same protocols the airport requires, which is a piece of plastic at time of change.
Okay, so I guess every time a transaction is conducted where a virtual card is being used, a new virtual card number needs to be created.
That is correct, yes.
Perfect. Another question. What if the amount on the virtual card ends up being more than is actually needed for a particular charge?
Great question as well. On the reporting, you'll see that a lot, right? Where you may want to put like a 20% variance in on the hotel. What happens is, as long as it's under, it is fine, right? You can be under that amount. So you requested $240, and the hotel comes in at $221.67. What happens is, at the end of the month, you'll see the $221, not the $240.
Okay, and I know that there's a multitude of other questions, and I will certainly address it after the webinar individually, but one last question that just came in, which should be a quick and easy answer, is, are there cancellation or change fees for the virtual cards?
No, having Comdata, the Comdata program, no cancellation fees, no change fees. We don't charge setup fees for the program. This is really about, just utilizing the virtual card. There are no fees with by using Comdata.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Emil, for your informative presentation today, and thank you again to our audience for your time and participation. The webinar has been recorded, and it will be made available for replay, and you will be advised shortly when that has been made available. As I had noted, there were questions that did go unanswered, so I will get back to those respective individuals. But if anyone thinks of any additional questions or would like more information on the subject, please contact your travel account manager at any particular time. Also, as a quick reminder, please mark your calendars now for the next monthly webinar. The date is May 30th. The topic will be advised shortly once I have confirmed everything. Again, thank you all for your time today, and enjoy the remainder of your day. Thank you.